Summer session number 10.
We'll begin our first mindful minute here, tuning into the present, taking some calming breaths, releasing any tension around the breath, and becoming aware of any sensations you're feeling right now in the body, settling into a nice malleable posture that's also soft and stable, like a lump of clay. You can tune into your 5 senses, what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling. Today I'm hearing some lovely rain noises that I might keep in the final edit. You can give one last stretch here, wiggle the fingers a little, and get ready for the art part. So today I have this narwhal with a little wave design, so very fitting for a rainy summer day here. And I'll start as usual with these simple shapes just to warm up the fingers and get those creative juices flowing. It's a very simple sort of S shape with a little loop back on itself. And I'll do them in both directions going out from my little narwhal here. If you're following without one of these books, you can just leave a space. And if you want to cozy those up later, you can always add a little bit more of a simple design in. I'm going to be alternating these with another blue, which, to be honest, it doesn't make a huge difference when you look at them, even though the pens themselves looks like there should be a huge difference in these inks. It's pretty subtle, if there is any difference at all. But just for fun, I'm going to alternate these 2 colors. This is much easier to do if you do have a design to follow underneath. But if you want the same sort of effect, you could always do the basic lines in one color and then alternate 2 different colors in lines over that. So for our little narwhal friend, I'm going to start by outlining some basic shapes here in a non-photo blue. It may not show up very well, which is kind of the point of it. It's really very helpful though for tracing these basic shapes underneath. And if you're following along at home, you can start with that sort of big circle where his head is, and then do a long curved shape for his body, with some little triangles at the end for his tail. And over that, I'm going to follow the outermost outline to get that shape in a nice bold line. He's got these little sort of curves on the end of his tail that I'm going to fill in as I go. But for simplicity's sake, you could always just make it a more classic whale tail at the end there. I'm doing little triangles right here for his fins, since I do want this to be the outermost outline. I like doing it in this style. You can always go in and define those little fin shapes fully if you want at this point. But the reason I like doing it this way is because that sort of thicker outer line will give it a very slight Art Nouveau sort of style. Went a little outside my line here, so I'm going to fix that quickly. And I think I'll finish his horn in the same outline color as well. I was going to switch to the gray sort of color I want to use, but I think this will keep that sort of Art Nouveau style a bit more. The really nice thing about doing a strong outline like that is it lets you see the silhouette of the character or subject that you're drawing really well. And if you have a strong silhouette in a drawing, you usually have a nice strong drawing too. Often artists can get sucked into tiny little details very early on, which is how a lot of things sort of lose the outer form and perspective when you're drawing. So it helps to start with those basic shapes underlying, like I did with the circle for his head and the tube for his body, and then making a nice strong outline over top of that. If you're ever working from pictures and you have the ability to take it into image editing sort of software, it can help to take something like this and just fill the whole thing in black. That way there you can see what the silhouette looks like. This has a nice strong action line with that curve back with his tail. And sometimes you can take something from a picture and let's say he was a bit more straight, you can just curve that tail up when you're drawing it to give it a stronger silhouette and just add a little bit more action. So what I'm doing here is just drawing in some of the strongest lines that I see in this design. I probably won't get to all of the little nitty-gritty zentangles in here, because that would take much longer than 10 minutes. And I don't want my time to get away from me too much today. I was going to do the last line by his fin there, but it creates a weird sort of lining up of the belly line with that inner line, and I don't want that. I want there to be some space between those lines so that they don't sort of line up in a weird way that would suggest that his tummy's cutting through that outer fin. Just little things like that can help keep the space and perspective in line, because the back fin, you'll notice, is behind that belly line. So we don't want any lines on that front fin suggesting the same idea. It'll just look a little weird is all. Then again, this tattooed looking narwhal is already a little bit weird looking, but we'll try and keep it within reason a little bit. I'm kind of liking how these big divisions look on him, so I might do my inner colorings or designs very lightly just to keep that sort of overall look that I'm really enjoying here with him. Don't like how that line's going a little bit more concave there, so I might fix that. And while I'm at it, maybe I'll make this bottom line a little bit thicker. One of the ways that you can add weight to a drawing is to add a slightly thicker line on the bottom. You can do this fairly easily by pressing harder with a marker, or in the case of right now I'm working in pen, you just go over the line again a little bit and you can see where I'm creating a bit of a darker line there. And for his tail part, I'm going from a thin to a thicker line. Again, just to suggest that that weight is getting a little bit heavier towards his little tummy. So I'm going to start by defining some of the areas that I want in gray, and I have a silver pen that I want to sit on top of this. I've been working lately with using some pencil to create an area where I can use my metallic pens, which tend to bleed into the page a bit more, but the pencil shading puts some pigment into the page that the other pigment kind of bleeds and sticks in, so that it doesn't transfer to the other side as much. Just a little trick with journals like this that can be helpful so that you don't have too much bleed going from one page to the other. And now I'm going to speed things up because I'm out of sand, and I do want to finish defining some of these colors before we move on to the writing part. If you're following along at home and you still have a bunch of coloring or designs you want to do, you can always come back to this or start over at the time signature. Or you can be a bit more diligent about your time than I am and actually stick to 10 minutes. But I do like leaving off on a more sort of natural space, so I am going to finish just this part of the coloring for now. And I might wander back here, as I'm wont to do in the writing or craft parts, because part of the whole point of this is to doodle in the sides or other parts of your page while journaling. Again, there's only a very subtle difference between these blues that I'm using, but it adds a little bit of interest and difference to those areas. So I'm happy with that, and we'll move on to our other mindful minute. Just checking back in with the breath to see if it's gotten more hasty, and maybe calming it down by releasing any tension around it. Can straighten up the posture because we probably crunched in a bit towards the page. And maybe reset the shoulders, since your dominant hand might have pulled one shoulder a bit more forward than the other. And tune back into the hearing, the seeing, the smelling and tasting, and any other feelings that are going on right now. Feel the paper underneath you, and do a few little wrist circles here before we move on to our writing prompts. I'll set my timer. And start filling in this prompt. So today we're writing, do you have a favorite summer activity you can use to reward yourself for any goals or healthy habits? And as usual, I like to pull out some keywords, which I've put in bold, like summer activity, reward, goals, healthy habits. Not only does this add a little visual interest, but it also helps getting your mind into the question by pulling out those keywords. Because I certainly have many favorite summer activities, but thinking about which ones I would use as rewards kind of changes those a little bit. some activities are a bit more relaxing than others. Summer is such an active sort of season. There's not a lot of things I think of as being fully relaxing in the summer out of the stuff I like to do. Most of it is more active things like walking, biking around, going to the beach, going to parks, traveling around, dancing. Maybe it's because summer is starting to draw towards its end that a lot of the stuff I normally like doing doesn't seem as relaxing anymore. It seems more like, I don't want to say work, but effort. I guess effort. Now that I've gone camping a couple times and gone out dancing, I can't say it's fully out of my system. I might still have another weekend in me, but I don't see it as a relaxing reward for getting something like a goal done or doing healthier habits. Now, I'm just taking a quick look at some of my craft papers here to see what colors I might want to use to answer this prompt. And there's some green there that I might pull out a little bit or mimic, let's say. So, in the vein of thinking about things that are actually relaxing to me, I do love watching movies and cartoons. And that's not a particularly summer activity, but it is the thing that I find relaxing the most. Just laying back on the couch and enjoying the show. I do also enjoy reading at the beach in the summer, which is another very rewarding activity, but it already kind of has a healthy habit rolled into it in that I tend to bike or walk, usually bike though, to the beach. So that would be a fun day to have both a healthy activity and a reward all in one. So I might wander back to this idea of watching movies as a reward. And I just want to check in with my craft paper again, because I guess I'm at the point now where I'll either have to tear this paper up if I want to glue it in, or I can just tape it in so that it's a door and the writing just sits behind it. So, just a little check to be mindful of the space that I'm going to be using here. And I'll wander back to this question and thinking of any big goals I have on the horizon. So, right now, one of my bigger goals is to get the drawings for my next journal set done. And I feel like that would be something I could celebrate with a little movie day. So I could also maybe add some treats into that mix with some ice cream or popsicles. That would make it summery in a way, a little bit. And I could watch some Ghibli movies, since a few of those are very summery feeling. I know there's a couple that definitely take place in the summertime, as per my previous journal session thinking about summery movies. So I think that's pretty good for now. I know there are more summer activities I could think to jot down, but those are the ones that I feel would be the most rewarding right now for me. And that is the point of this, is to think of what would be rewarding. So I'm going to just go in and fill in some of these designs in my silver with some of my remaining prompt time. Wandering back to this drawing will allow my mind to wander over in case there's anything else that might come up for this prompt. That's doing a pretty good job of not bleeding through to the other side there, so keep doing some of these little silvery designs. I have a nice metallic blue as well that I wanted to get in here. And again, I might not do all the little intricate designs inside this narwhal, so that might take a lot of time, but I'm doing some of these triangle shapes. And the nice thing about having this design in the book in light gray is that there will be those little designs underneath it all to add some depth. And since I've run out of sand, I'm just going to speed this up for the sake of the video. But this will also allow me to come to a nice natural resting place where a bit more of the design has been filled in. To find that place, it helps to sort of look at the overall design while you're working. And again, try and keep from getting sucked into any sort of minute little details that are liable to pull you in. And now we'll reset for our last mindful minute. Taking some nice calming breaths and becoming aware of any sensations you're feeling in the body. Checking back in with the posture. Seeing if anything's drifted while writing. Feeling the breath in the body and how that changes any sensations, like feelings as you move, the soft sounds that it creates, and any other sensations like bringing in smells. Make sure the posture is nice and straight, and give a last stretch and wiggle before we begin the crafting part. Whoop! Well, so for this, like I said, I'm going to have to make this into a door because my writing got away from me. But that's why I do the writing before the crafting part. There is some method to my madness in the order of things here. By doing the art part first, it helps me figure out what kind of palette I want to use, and reminds me to maybe select some major pieces for crafting with later that I want to use to create a sort of cohesive whole piece. And then the writing part, I like to sort of make sure it mimics the art in color at least a little bit. And of course, for just the simple sake of spacing, it helps to do the writing before the crafting. So, if you've ever wondered why things are done in this order in my videos, that's why. Very practical. Nothing too special about it, except that I like to make sure I have room for things. And if I do the crafting too early, I can get away from myself really quickly. So try and work with my tendencies instead of against them. Which is one of the interesting things that can come out of this journaling practice, is to sort of get to know yourself if you're paying attention. It's easy to get sucked into the details of writing, crafting, doodling, but if you can kind of bring your awareness up, poke your head up a little bit every now and again, you can take note of different things and ways that you tend to create. Maybe different ways that you can get a little bit stuck in certain areas or resistant to doing certain things. I know for myself, I can get sort of stuck in ideas of how things should end up. And it can help to release around that by allowing myself to do what needs to be done, or I should say, allowing myself to do what I'm able to do day to day, instead of what needs to be done, according to some weird arbiter in my head saying that if I start crafting today, I need to get it all done. So, through journaling, I've gotten to know my inner taskmaster or inner completionist very well. She's been with me for a long time, ever since I was a kid playing Pokemon, and I definitely was the kid that had to get them all and had to do everything in those sorts of games. Speedrunning makes my taskmaster freak out, to be honest, even though I do enjoy watching those runs sometimes. But it's a side of myself that I've come to know and come to realize that I can work around. She doesn't always need to get her way. So, in doing some crafting things like this, I'll take a look at what can be done, and in these 10-minute segments, a lot can get done. Obviously, I go over that 10-minute mark often here, but there's a lot that can be created in each of these little segments, and I can always come back. That's the other thing that's always good to be mindful of, is even if things don't all get done, I can always come back. And you can always come back too. But that's why I talk about things like finding a natural stopping place or natural or organic place to end off something. It's mostly because of being mindful of that idea that if I do stop and come back to this, I want to have sort of a easy way of getting started again. So when it comes to any of the drawings that I do, I like to fill in enough color so that I know what I want to do where, if that makes sense. So I'm going to tape in my door here, which I've used some overlapping stickers on the other piece of paper to hold that in. And one of those stickers I've only half stuck in and left the backing on so that it creates a little door handle, as I've done in some previous videos. It's a silly little thing, but I do enjoy it because the cardboard and the weight of the sticker will help hold this whole thing down so that I don't have this door flying open all the time. And I'm going to use some of my solid colored tape here because it tends to be a bit stickier than my printed tape, which I love those tapes, but they're not as sticky. So I just work around it. An easy way to do that is to just layer on more tape. And the whole point of this collaging part is to layer things. That's the wonderful art of collage, is you can add layers and depth to your artwork. And some functionality too. I know it seems like a bit of a facetious thing to say that this functions as a door, but it does. It creates this whole area behind it that I can now add stickers to, or more writing if I wanted to. You could even close the door if you wanted to hide a secret back there. Or sometimes I'll make little pockets by taping off 3 sides of a piece of paper like this instead of just the one. But I like these doors probably more than any other sort of ways that I like to layer in papers, just because anything that's sort of poking out behind it, you get a little sneaky view of it, but then you also get the full effect of it when you open the door. So it makes sort of an interactive part of the journal, which is not extremely interactive, I know, but it's a book. So the most interactive thing you usually do with a book is turn its pages. And we're just extending that a little bit to create little inner pages. I'm going to use a bit more tape to paint some colors behind here. Because I do want more of this brown on the last page, or I should say in the behind area back here. And I might even make a little frame on the back of this piece of paper for some writing later. But I'll speed that up a little bit because, once again, I've run out of sand. So I'm just layering these two tapes this way so that I have the bigger one over top of the smaller one. Even though they're less sticky, that will help them stick down a bit more. And I'll use some of these stickier solid tapes to finish my little frame. That way maybe I'll come back to this and write down what I did use to reward any goals. I've pulled that door off its hinge a little bit, so maybe I'll need to reinforce that with some clear tape. I'm just going on the other side, using sort of the back of it to line it up as far into the crease as I can get it, and trying to get some of those bubbles out. And that looks, I'll just need to cut a little bit so that door functions better. That looks pretty good, except, I got a little spot here. I'm going to tape down. There. Now I'm happy with that. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I hope you created something beautiful, fun, and funky with me. And as always, I hope that between this and any other sessions you join me for, you have some wonderful sessions exploring yourself and your tiny little world in your journal. So, the music is on the Lofi's to Live By's playlist as always, and it came from the lovely Lofi girl. Thank you so much for watching.